He didn't expect the night to turn into a test of his dignity. He was simply driving home after a long shift, thinking about nothing more than seeing his family. But the flashing blue lights behind him shifted everything. A routine stop, at least that's what it was supposed to be. Yet from the moment the officer approached, something felt wrong. A tension thick enough to choke on, a judgment made before a single word was spoken. And what happened next exposed more than just bias. It uncovered a truth the officer never imagined. The question is, what pushed everything over the edge?
He had always lived a life defined by consistency. Early mornings, long shifts, and a quiet drive home where the world finally felt still. For Marcus, routine was safety. He worked as a senior investigator, someone trained to examine truth, expose misconduct, and protect people who often never knew his name. But outside of work, he was simply a father trying to provide, a husband who cherished peaceful moments, and a man who preferred blending into the background rather than standing in the spotlight. That evening was supposed to be no different. The sky had the soft glow of a fading sunset, and the roads were nearly empty, just the way he liked it. He took the same route he always did, passing the familiar storefronts, the quiet neighborhoods, the old gas station with the flickering sign. Everything felt predictable, until it didn't.
Marcus pulled over slowly, steadying his breath as the cruiser rolled to a stop behind him. The night was quiet, but inside his chest, everything felt loud. His heartbeat, his instincts, the faint echo of memories he wished didn't exist. He kept his hands on the wheel, just like he'd taught his son to do one day, hoping this would be nothing more than a brief interruption in an otherwise calm evening. But the officer didn't approach like someone performing a routine stop. His steps were heavy, sharp, the kind that carried intention rather than procedure. Marcus watched the silhouette move closer in his side mirror. The officer's posture was tense, his hand resting near his holster long before any conversation began. There was no greeting, no explanation, only a cold demand for Marcus to step out of the car. The shift in tone was immediate and unmistakable. Marcus complied, moving slowly, deliberately, every motion measured so nothing could be misinterpreted. Yet the officer's eyes weren't watching his hands. They were locked on his face, scanning him with an expression Marcus had seen too many times in his years investigating internal complaints. It was the look of someone who had already decided who he was without needing proof, without needing facts. As Marcus stepped into the chill of the night air, the officer circled him, studying him like a threat. He fired questions that weren't questions at all. Accusations shaped as inquiries, laced with hints of suspicion. Where he was coming from, why he was driving so late, whose car he was in. Every word pressed into Marcus like a reminder of the invisible line that people like him were expected not to cross. Cars passed occasionally on the road, but none slowed down. None noticed the tension unraveling at the side of the street. The officer asked for identification, but when Marcus reached toward his pocket, the officer stepped back sharply, hand on his weapon, warning him not to move. Marcus froze instantly, fear tightening every muscle in his body. He had interviewed officers involved in similar escalations. He knew how quickly misunderstanding could turn fatal. He explained calmly, carefully, that his wallet was in his jacket. His voice was steady, but inside, unease spread like wildfire. The officer allowed him to retrieve it, though his posture remained locked, aggressive, ready for something Marcus wasn't giving him. When the officer took the ID, his expression shifted, not with recognition, but with annoyance. He walked back to his cruiser, leaving Marcus standing alone in the dim glow of his headlights, exposed, vulnerable, replaying every second in his head. Then the officer returned, this time angrier. He claimed the ID looked suspicious, claimed Marcus didn't match the profile of the car's owner, claimed things Marcus had never heard used in a traffic stop before. None of it made sense. All of it was designed to push him. Marcus tried to remain composed, but the officer's voice grew sharper, louder, as if he were searching for a reason to escalate further. Something inside Marcus twisted with dread. He knew the officer wasn't just questioning him, he was building a narrative. And when the officer demanded that Marcus place his hands behind his back, without cause, without explanation, Marcus realized this wasn't just a stop. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous.
The truth hit the first officer like a tidal wave the moment the second officer pulled him aside. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His expression said enough. Marcus wasn't just another driver on the road. He wasn't a suspect, a threat, or a profile to match. He was the head of internal affairs, the one man in the department whose job was to investigate officers exactly like him. The shift was immediate, but too late. The first officer's aggression dissolved into panic, his confidence collapsing under the weight of realization. He loosened his grip, stumbling through excuses that floated weakly in the cold night air. Miscommunication, routine check, just doing my job. But nothing he said could erase what had already happened. The humiliation, the fear, the subtle choices that revealed the truth long before his badge did. Marcus stood there quietly, breathing through the ache in his shoulder, staring at the man who had turned an ordinary evening into a moment that could have ended differently, fatally even. And that knowledge carried more weight than any title or authority could soften. He didn't yell, he didn't threaten, he simply documented everything, as he had done for years, because this wasn't just about him. It was about a pattern he'd investigated too many times. A pattern that kept returning, with different faces, different names, but the same root. The officer was placed under investigation before the night ended. Procedures were followed, reports were filed, but consequences, Marcus knew, were only part of the story. The deeper wound was the reminder that a badge alone couldn't fix the prejudice behind it. Marcus drove home slowly, the road still quiet, the night unchanged, but he wasn't. He knew his son would ask why he was late. He knew he'd hesitate before explaining. Because how do you tell a child that respect, obedience, and innocence still aren't always enough? And as he pulled into his driveway, one question lingered, one that wasn't just his. If someone in his position wasn't safe, who is? What would you have done if this happened to you?